Yeah, and you give me a nice lengthy intro to the show before you start saying people's names.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, what goes around comes around, honey.
I'm well aware.
You're live on LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn is up.
Good reminder. I was going to say something.
Facebook is up.
Uh-oh.
Or as Bill Belichick likes to say, my face.
My face.
Yeah.
FaceTime. Face tweet. That's what my boss at NBC used to call it. You know that Twitter face thing that you talk about all the time.
Twitter face.
Oh, I gotta change my name. Change my name.
Well, you didn't get divorced, did you?
We're working on it.
Oh,
Yikes.
see what Steve does when I'm out of the house? Hmm.
She's out of the house a lot.
Mm.
My.
Well, compared to you, Steve.
My wife went to South Africa for 2 weeks. She's totally out of the house.
Wow.
She's really out of the house.
Yeah, that's being
Oh, so you're a prime caregiver and house sitter
indeed.
and dog watcher and chef.
chief cook and bottle washer.
Yeah.
Exactly. My youngest and my oldest went to the Warriors game last night against the Lakers.
They saw a great game.
Well, what a great game. Well, it was a great fourth quarter.
Yeah. I didn't like the ending so much, but it was a great game.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I missed that.
Okay,
Okay. Are we?
is everybody here?
Mm-hmm. Everyone is present.
Okay, then
Okay. Mute is off. I don't like that.
two,
To me. Okay.
okay, three,
Mute is off. And we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
hi. Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. A brief note, our former colleague, Michael Markman, has left the show. We're sorry to see him go, and we wish him all the best.
absolutely.
Joining us from the state framework of Massachusetts is Dennis Pombriant.
Test 1, 2, 3. This is my first day with the new voice. Good guy.
What does that mean about a new voice?
It means as much as a framework.
Good point.
Got you there.
Yeah. From the state of confusion.
Uh-oh.
I want to see the recoil of.
There it is.
There it is.
The head shake.
The slight head shake, disrespect look.
It's disappointment, Steve. It's
Yeah. Yeah, like
I've learned to deal with such contempt. So yeah.
It's kind of the look of a sad, resigned parent with a recalcitrant child.
Yeah, that's
That
what I was
lowest
going.
Yeah. I was going to say the look of love, but what do I know?
Now,
I'll go with the week.
Anybody else want to talk over Brent's introduction?
Oh God, I'm out of here.
Oh, there we go.
Jeez. I was wondering how long it was going to take.
So anyway, the guy from Georgia is Brent Leary. Welcome.
Thank you and good night.
From Palo Alto, California, is Keith Cheer.
Keith of the great cinematography school.
Oh.
What does that mean?
He's so cinematic.
Picture.
He's
Exactly.
so cinematic.
Cinematic.
Well, the shot looks like it.
Was that the correspondence course run by Steven Spielberg?
Spielberg.
No, you mean the guy who wears the Nolex watch?
The Nolex watch, right?
My lens is a fixed lens, and this is like not zoomed in. This is like the widest it can go. And
Wow.
that's to disguise the fact that I'm still wearing pajamas.
Well, you couldn't tell from the waist up. I mean,
And we're thankful for that.
I think you're
Currently
asking a
in
little too much of
London,
the lens.
England, is Frank Radis. Welcome, Frank.
thank you and welcome, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea.
That's a new one.
That's an old one.
Who
For
said
me.
that?
That was during World War II, and it was.
Yeah, keep talking.
I know that
He doesn't know the answer.
I know I do. I give me a second. Edward R. Murrow.
There you go.
Very well done.
All right.
Thank you.
What
Because
network
I
was he
I
on?
worked. He had a bunch of people that were called Murrow's boys, and there were like a handful of reporters that were with him during World War II in London. One of whom was Howard K. Smith, is someone I worked with, and another one was Bill Downs, who was another guy that I worked with. Both of whom are no longer with us, and on my extremely long list of people I've worked with who are now dead.
You may not know this, but
Wow.
Stephen Colbert uses that line once in a while
Does he?
in his monologue. Yeah.
I thought he was the good knight in. How did he sign off Edward R.
Good night,
Murrow?
good night, and good news.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
So did I get to say the guy's name, Frank Radis?
No.
Well,
Okay, welcome, Frank Radis.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, gang.
Okay, and to my extreme right, I like the sound of that, is our producer director and keeping us all sane. It's Tina Chase Gillmor. Welcome.
hi everybody.
Hello.
Nice to see you all.
Pelosi clap.
I,
That's a Haley clap, evidently.
I'm,
Yeah, Nikki.
I'm anticipating a football today, as I know Brent is.
Is that why we started early?
Not as much as I would have been, but yes, I am. anticipating.
Who do you want to win the two games, Brent? Just so we can gauge it later.
I mean, actually, these are some tough games. And I pretty much like most of the teams outside of that team in the Northern California area. So I'm going with the Lions. And I'm going with the Ravens.
Ooh.
Why?
I
Because
would-
they're going to win, right?
I'm hoping. She asked me who do I want to see win? And
So you're hoping that the Ravens win. For what reason?
I like the Ravens as a team. They're a gritty, tough, hard-hitting bunch.
Harbaugh.
Can you quote the Ravens?
Not so much.
Yes, what a tale their terror tells
Ah.
of despair.
See, I
And what a
thought, Dennis,
clank
you would have
they
laughed at
clank
that.
and roar. What a terror they outpour of despair.
Wow. Are you
Wow.
doing something from your schooling, Steve?
Poorly, yes.
Good old
I
Eddie
think-
Poe.
Eddie.
Eddie Poe, yeah.
EP.
I think when your team is no longer in the race, hatred kicks in as to who you want to win. You decide who you hate, and then by default, you're okay for the other team to win.
Well, I'm rooting for the Lions really hard. Lions have never been to the Super Bowl
That's amazing.
ever. They're always a losing team. And this year they've gotten this far and have played pretty extraordinarily. So
I am rooting for them, but
Nervous?
mostly because your quarterback was my quarterback, and I like the guy still. So
there you go.
But do they really have if you were really just neutrally stacking it, what are the odds that they can beat the 49ers?
Oh, they could win. They got a great Detroit
They
has a
could beat
good
any
team.
of these.
Yeah, they can win.
Well,
They're probably not gonna, but they could because they're playing in San Francisco. But yeah,
you
I
know,
can see them winning even with that. Yeah.
they've gotten this far. It's not like they're a chump team this year.
Oh,
They're not. They're not a Trump. They're a good team. They're a really good team.
Trump team, Trump team?
Okay,
did you
so-
say?
Well, I don't know.
okay. So there are four
I'm drinking a
teams.
latte here.
The
This-
poll, the unencumbered poll of the day.
Ooh, a poll.
There's a poll in the house.
I'm a poll.
Jinquia.
Raise your hand if you think
That's
the
all, yeah.
Lions are going to win today.
I'm gonna say yes because I'm being very positive.
Me too. I'm going. I'm.
Thank you. Thank you. Dennis is in. Keith is abstaining, I guess. And-
No, I'm not. I'm voting for
He just wants the 49ers to win, of course.
I'm a fan. I watched every 49ers game this season.
Okay, it's fair. I had my.
Does that mean that, like Trump, if there's no good reason to vote for him, you're going to still vote for him anyway?
No. If I was a fan, I would, but I'm not a fan. But on the other hand, I hate him. Therefore, I'm voting for Biden, but it's only because I hate Trump.
That's as good a reason as any.
And I would be rooting for the 49ers because I consider them one of my teams as well. But not in this case.
I just wanted to state for the fact this has been the longest, at least that I've been on the show, that we've done a segment talking about sports. I mean, like, wow, I'm kind of at a loss for words at this point.
Whoa.
Well, we can add to it. I've just spent 2 hours watching Newport County of the 4th tier of English soccer get to 2-2 at halftime against Manchester United, world famous Manchester United.
They're like a real Cinderella story, aren't they?
Well, yeah, yesterday there's a competition in England called the FA Cup. In the FA Cup, basically all tiers of English soccer compete, and there's about 12 tiers. And by the time you get to the round we're in now, which is the 4th round, yesterday Maidstone United of the 6th tier went to Ipswich, the top of the 2nd tier, and beat them to go through to the next stage. And today Newport lost 4-2 to Manchester United, but for quite a long time they were looking good.
So
somebody has to say this,
the
but
transcript,
is there a Keith tier?
When we release a transcript of this show, you'll be able to count the number of words after your first comment about the what you call football that we care about.
Well, you obviously didn't hear what I said. I wanted to know if there was a Keith tier.
I was waiting for that one too. And Frank always comes through.
I come
There-
through. You want to know who I want to see win?
Yes,
You care?
Frank, we do.
The Ravens.
Oh, why is that?
Okay.
Because I lived in Maryland most of my life. Went to the University of Maryland.
Oh,
Not hop, skip, and a jump from Baltimore. Just that's
How many
the only
people
reason.
who
I'm
play
rooting
for the
Ravens.
How many people who
And
play for the
Ravens.
Ravens live in the state?
I don't know.
a few of them do.
I got to think a few of them have to.
That's like any team.
It's like how many congressmen live in Washington?
It doesn't really matter.
There was a story yesterday here that an unreasonably large number of 49ers live in Morgan Hill. Nobody, the article was all about trying to figure out why.
Because
Morgan Hill's nice.
it's near what? The
Morgan
state,
Hill is about 20 minutes south of San Jose.
right?
Probably it's under an hour car ride to the stadium. And it's very large lots,
That's what I was
mainly
gonna say.
new houses, and not that expensive.
That sounds like in New
Little bit-
York, a lot of the players live in Alpine, New Jersey, which are big, large lots with huge houses that are not nearly as expensive as something that you would get that would be closer. So save your money. That's all I have to say.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay. What are we going to talk about today?
Tesla's share price has tanked.
Yeah. How about that? So what does that say about the EV market? I mean, didn't the overall EV numbers go down? I heard that Hertz was selling most of its EVs in its stable of cars. What does that mean?
Well, the Hertz thing, I looked into that. They are selling all their Model 3s, and I think it's because they bought the wrong ones. And they're selling them. They've typically done about 80,000 miles in less than a year, and they're selling them at quite a decent discount. But I think it's because they want to refresh their EV fleet, not because they're getting out of EVs.
So that felt like I might have been misinformed by whatever media I was reading, which is pretty misinformed these days.
But it is true that most of Tesla's rivals, with the exception of China, are underperforming on sales, and therefore there's pretty big discounts. Like Dennis, if you were buying a Mustang Mach-E today, you'd get a roughly $10,000 off, as opposed to what it was back in the COVID time where you had to pay an extra $10,000.
Yeah.
And the Teslas have come way down. There's a new Model 3 that's completely upgraded in terms of comfort level internally, that is very inexpensive now compared to what it was. So the margins on a Tesla have shrunk to about, I think it's just over 15%, which is huge for I mean, no other cars in the market have a 15% margin. So it's a huge margin, but it's way smaller than it used to be.
And for those of us who have no idea what you're talking about, what is a margin?
A margin is what is left over after you return the costs of selling the car and building it. So it's your profit margin. It's the difference between
It's also called gross margin.
Yeah, your gross margin after your cost of sales and your
Taxes.
Cost
There
R&D,
was
raw
a
materials, labor.
Yeah.
there was a testimony on Capitol Hill where I want to say it was somebody from the energy department was asked a question about whether the grid will be able to sustain the electric vehicle market over the next 10 or 15 years. And his answer was a resounding no, which made me wonder if he was a Republican placed there by the former president and still in that job, or if that's true. I don't know.
Remember what Mark Cuban said about how the internet would not be able to support video?
Well, we thought that at MSNBC where
Right.
we
Well,
started.
Mark Cuban famously talked that. So,
I that's why I asked the question.
Not true, right?
And you made a good point, Steve.
Well, at a congressional hearing, you'd expect to hear something like that because they're looking for funding to expand their
Grid.
the grid.
Yeah.
And the thing that electric vehicles have going for them is that they charge at night when base load demand is pretty low.
Yeah.
I read this thing yesterday about it was on X somewhere, and it was someone who I respect talking about the distributed grid powered by solar, and making the point that the opportunity has been mishandled because there is a lot of solar being sold. Just to give you a sense of it, in my case, in the winter like now, solar only contributes 15% of my electricity because the sun isn't strong enough to do much more than that. But in the summer, it's over 100%, and I sell back to the grid at about 17 cents a kilowatt hour. They pay me. So over a year, I'm only paying about a third to a quarter of what I was paying before I had solar. But most people don't buy solar because it's too expensive. They get these finance deals, which are like 30-year mortgages, where they're basically the financial companies have taken over solar and are selling solar as a disguised form of selling debt. Thus, it isn't really taking off the way it could.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's right. Because the homeowner basically gets the solar panels paid for by the monthly fees, but doesn't get any benefit from using solar energy, except maybe in the summer.
Yeah. And I mean, in my case, I'm surrounded by big trees, like most of California. So I get punished by the trees. And of course, we're not allowed to cut them down to get more sun.
You know, it wouldn't help everybody, but if solar panels, and I think the next iteration of solar panels need to have little motors to help them track the sun. Because when they can do that, they can maintain perpendicularity to the sun ray, regardless of the time of year. That hasn't happened yet, but strikes me it's one of the things that has to.
I mean, if nuclear fusion ends up being real, and if it is, it can be shrunk. You're going to have pretty much free power at the edge, meaning the connected grid will over time become less important. And I think there's a lot of reason to believe that nuclear fusion is getting to the point where doubts about its feasibility are eroding.
Are you saying that homeowners might have their own little power plants so they wouldn't have
Not
to
just
rely on the grid?
homeowners, even
Or
cars,
businesses?
even a car might.
Hmm.
So basically, it's free power, and it's safe.
Honestly, Keith, I don't think your children will live to see that.
Yeah, you'd know better than me. I'm an optimist, so I believe all kinds of BS that gets thrown at me. But it would be if it's scientifically feasible, then it's shrinkable.
Sounds like the water engine to me.
Here's a problem you need to think about. Nuclear fusion does not happen unless you have an extremely hot plasma, like 20,000 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a limit to how much you can shrink that. You can't put that in a car or in a glove box or anything else. Moreover, I mean, that's very similar to the argument that was made after World War II when we had programs like Atoms for Peace. Everybody could have a nuclear fission plant in their backyards, and that didn't happen because it's tremendously radioactive. Fusion won't give you the radioactivity for different reasons, but it is a heat menace.
Yeah. Which reminds me, the other thing I read this week is Kenya, it turns out, has huge reserves of heat under the ground that you talked about probably about a year ago, Dennis, and is rebuilding their entire energy infrastructure from thermal.
Yes, that's basically we're talking about the Great Rift Valley of Eastern Africa, where two tectonic plates are colliding slowly over time, and where you can extract a great deal of energy. Same thing is true basically along all of the Pacific Rim, the Ring of Fire, under the Rocky Mountains. They say that if you think about the Earth as a baseball, and the stitching that goes around it, all that stitching is where you could sink some geothermal wells and pull up a great deal of energy, letting the Earth be your reactor, and not having to worry about all those silly details.
Mm-hmm. But that said, what about Nikki Haley?
Good segue.
What a
Really
segue.
good. That was smooth.
No, it
Well,
was. It was
I was
excellent.
thinking about hot catalysts.
Ooh.
Hot catalysts.
And then you went there. So good.
Well, you only
A+
forced
on
me
the-
to go there because I had to come up with a segue that I hadn't previously thought about, and that was the first thing that came in my head.
Well, that's your burden that
Nikki.
you see.
So what about?
Oh, wait a minute. By the way, Nikki is a fire sign theater reference.
Oh, you got one in.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one, Steve?
Nikki.
I
You know,
thought
Nick
that was
Danger,
a
Third Eye.
song
The
from
girl
what's that?
stood at the top of the balustrade looking
Tony
down
Gaze.
at Nick Danger. Anyway.
Well, the thing that strikes me is she's got the former guy flustered. Obviously, he's still very likely to win and is way in the lead. But you got to say, if there was any path for her, it does involve what she's doing, which is opening up against him and being vigorous in her determination to believe this is a long fight and she can win it.
Well, you add to that Biden coming out after him stronger than ever, and $83.3 million. Those three things together probably are making him a little bit nervous.
But this is the valley of
The shadow of death.
disbelief. No, I mean he's not going to spend dime one on that
Doesn't he have
legal.
to?
Well,
Doesn't he have
except
to?
if he chooses to, from what I understand, if he chooses to uh,
Appeal.
appeal, he has to put $83.3 million into
Escrow.
a bond fund or an escrow fund, because chances are he's not going to get some bail people or anyone to lend him $83 million, which he still would have to put into some kind of an escrow fund. I heard a couple of times.
Yes.
But
Yep.
that's even though he's not as rich as we all think he is,
Or he
he
thinks he is.
or he thinks he is. He's got plenty of leverage, and 83 million is not going to be a problem for him.
Yeah, but what about the 280 million that's coming up this week in that other trial?
I think he's got assets that mean he could raise. He probably could raise as loans, short-term loans, as much as he's ever going to need.
It'd be
But,
so
from-
funny to see him go to claim bankrupt when all this stuff hits.
You
Wouldn't
know,
it be
the-
cool if he did that right in the middle of a presidential run when he's supposed to be the executive in chief and he has to claim bankruptcy because of his own mouth. He can't stop his own mouth.
yeah.
There'll be a lot of vultures with money looking at his buildings and begging him to take money from them, that are these guaranteed against his buildings.
Well, I thought that he had to that he couldn't use any of his assets that had loans against them
That's true, but
as collateral. He can only use assets that he completely owns or cash that he has at hand.
well, he can use equity as well. So if a building is half owned by debt, he can use the other half.
Yeah, as
but
long
are
as he
people
can get a reliable estimate for the value of the building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but are people gonna? Yeah, but he always says, "Well, the Trump brand is worth billions, so anything that has the Trump brand involved with it, people are willing to pay me. It's just the best brand out there. So are people going to be willing to pay what he thinks that he should get from selling this stuff?
No.
Yeah. No,
didn't think so.
but I think 83 million and even 320 million or whatever the other one is, I wouldn't focus on the money challenge. It's more reputation and brand. I think you nailed it there. I think he's damaging his brand, but other people might think he's strengthening it. So
Yeah, well,
Well,
he
but
does. He thinks
Only the sycophants.
his whole strategy is to wallow in it.
so
You know,
if his brand is damaged, it's going to be because him, but I also thought that, and I'm still waiting to hear about this. What's happening with any ruling that actually pulls him out of business in New York and forces him to put his businesses in some kind of a holding situation? What
That's
happened
part
with
of this.
That's the one that comes up this week.
So that's what I'm saying. So that could really cause a problem for him.
Yeah.
it'll be mainly legal fees because he's going to have to restructure the ownership through various. He'll either have to sell everything or he'll restructure it so that he's, like a blind trust is structured.
But that
If
goes
you
back to
have-
what you said. Oh, go ahead, Tina.
If he gets, if he has to come up with these dollars, aside from the fact that, okay, he can get his hands on it, he can probably do it, it's not going to kill him, he's probably not going to go bankrupt over it. It is really going to piss him off. And it's
Yeah.
really going to get under his skin because one thing we know, he does not like to spend his own money.
Correct. I
But
think
it
that's
goes back. It goes back to what you said, Keith. It's not only the money; it's the reputation. What if he loses and they say you're no longer able to do business in the state of New York? Oh my God, that's going to drive him crazy.
And
Put
the
R
83 to me, the 83 million was only the second thing I heard. The first thing I heard is the details of what he did to the woman. And
Those
if you
already
think
out
about
there.
his reputation, the details came out. I'm not going to repeat them here because
Yeah.
they're gross. But the guy clearly is a absolute monster, and you would think that would have some kind of an impact. And the only question in my head is, Well, that doesn't seem to be true. It doesn't seem to have an impact. So
Now, think about the evangelicals haven't made a move one way at all.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
they
that's
got
yeah,
Supreme
they're
Well-
so
Court.
hypocritical.
The evangelicals are quite happy with him.
Well, but there was a story in the New York Times, I think a couple of weeks ago, that talked about how the evangelicals really weren't religious anymore. That it wasn't about religion for the
Well, there you go.
evangelicals.
But,
So it's,
you know,
they're a political organization now, is that?
Well, there's one thing
have
we
they
haven't
ever
explored.
done anything else? No.
The thing we haven't explored about with Trump is that he's getting a lot of his legal fees paid for by fundraising,
Mhm.
and the fact that he lost this lawsuit, or has to pay up, and you got another one coming up. It does a great deal of damage to his personal brand, which is being a winner. And you have to ask yourself how long, and this is making the rounds in a lot of places. How long are people going to continue kicking in $5 or $10 a month to support him if what he's doing is basically igniting that money and just burning it off?
A lot of them.
I think that the people who are supporting him are gladly doing that, aren't
Yeah,
they?
absolutely.
They're happy to be helping him out legally. I still don't understand how he can be fundraising for a political campaign and using that money to apply to his
Legal fund.
that one talking makes me too relaxed.
it all depends on the terms and conditions of the recipient organization and
It's fine print.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought there was some effort on the part of someone to go after him legally because of that. That in fact he was using
that's
donor
true.
money.
And we'll see whether or not that has any real impact. My bet would be no.
Well, I believe those lawsuits emanate from Florida, so hold your breath.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, there's a long list of grievances against Trump, none of which I believe should form the main narrative against him. I think that all the grievances, as valid as they all are, serve him in a way, weirdly. And his vulnerability has got to be to drive a wedge between him and working class voters, especially women, because I think his weakness is policy weakness more than it is these grievances.
Yeah.
I'm really hard pressed to understand how rape or sexual abuse is something that people can get behind.
And
I
what?
think
Or
they
ignore.
I don't think they can get behind it, Tina. I just think it doesn't get high enough up their list of things to trump voting for him. Sorry for the.
Yeah, but I mean,
Well, people discount it as fake news.
Yeah.
They
You
just
know,
they just are in outright denial
It's
about
well,
part
it.
of the rationale for the so-called stolen election. That's how he legitimizes that ridiculous scenario.
so that if it all comes down to that we've warped reality and we just believe whatever a talking mouth
head.
projects,
Wig.
where are we?
Yeah, but don't you think that if we assume that people are moral and rational, therefore they shouldn't be for him, we've got enough evidence now to realize that people are not moral and not rational.
Right.
So we shouldn't even complain about it. It's just the nature of the beast.
Well,
I would want to focus in on things like the border. Clearly all these TV pictures of, I don't even know if they're real, of people, just young men mainly, walking across the border as if there isn't a border. And Trump trying to leverage that in the Congress, and Biden as reaction being put under pressure to find some way of closing the border. If you really drill down into that issue, America has full employment and an aging population and needs immigrants. Unskilled as well. A lot of people say we should let skilled people in, but America actually needs unskilled people as well. And actually, immigration is not a problem. The lack of control is a problem, but you could be having a lot of people come in and get jobs, and that would make farmers happy. It would make fast food places happy. It would make all kinds of people would be happy. So the narrative around immigration that immigrants are a problem, and in Trump's case, he calls them rapists and thieves and murderers, which is ironic coming from him. It's all BS. But the Democrats seem to be very defensive because they assume everyone hates immigrants. I don't think everyone does hate immigrants.
No, and immigrants also actually are a very positive force to big business. If you think about big business, like the big business that agribusiness, for example, depends on these people. There's people that have to work in the coal mines, the steel mills, whatever's left of them. People who dig holes for oil, the folks who work on the out on the platforms. There's a lot of jobs, as you say, unskilled that become skilled through training that are a very positive force for big business. Those are the people, however, who are supporting Trump. So there's some
I
odd
can't agree
dichotomy
with you.
there. No?
I just read a book on this, and one of the things we're ignoring is that immigrants work cheap. And when immigrants work cheap, they bring down the pay scale for native workers who might not have a lot of training and who won't take certain jobs for the amounts that are the hourly rates that are being offered to immigrants, but though immigrants will. So that erodes the earning power of regular unskilled workers. It also erodes the earning power of union members in the United States. So, you go back to 1965, the Immigration Act that a lot of this stems from. We were told by Ted Kennedy and his allies that that act wouldn't increase joblessness and wouldn't compete with Native American workers because we were only going to let in workers who were professionals and had skills. Well, that didn't quite work because there was a loophole in the law then, and it's still there right now, where immigrants who are attached to that one skilled worker don't get counted against the annual quota. So one person could come in and be, say, a doctor or an engineer, and he could bring 10 family members, and he'd be counted as one, and all those people would be out looking for work in less skilled capacities. That is the fundamental challenge that we have right now. It's closing that loophole and making sure that we don't have so many people coming in to take jobs. I mean, they don't all take jobs, but when Melania was imported by Donald, she brought her parents with her and maybe some other family members, and they are all people who did not count against the annual totals. And as a matter of fact, Melania got a green card on some very special HO something visa.
Yeah.
This woman here, she was a family member in the UK. I fought for her right to stay. She's called Afia Begum. That's her baby. She landed pregnant. Her husband was in the UK, and her husband died in a fire the week after she landed, and the authorities wanted to deport her. And we protected her. We fought for years, actually, to get her right to stay. And I do think that, Dennis, you're right in general, but don't you think you need to factor in the labor market right now is not competitive in that way? In fact, there's so many open jobs that there's no candidate for. that the idea that immigrants would bring down wages is not really tenable in the context. And as Brent's showing, as the population ages, that's going to be more and more true. So the normal union point of view, and in the UK, it took the form of unions supporting the slogan "British jobs for British workers," which is, not fascist, but it's getting there. And so this economic argument against immigration is only viable when there's massive unemployment, but there's massive job availability.
Well, I can't agree with you because I know that there was a Harvard study that made that point, but then it continued and it said um, American workers won't take these jobs, so they're open, but the second half of the statement was at these wages. American workers would be happy to, when I was 50 years ago when I was in college, I worked construction, and it was a white boys club. There was one black person on the job site that I was on, and it was pretty typical. And I was lucky to get into the union and etc. But today you go to a job site and white people are extremely rare. And in the Northeast, people on the job site are largely union members. But you go to Alabama, you go someplace like that where what is it, the Taft-Hartley Act made unions optional. Um, there's a lot of people who are working for much lower wages than they work for in the Northeast, and the jobs run in Spanish.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, where I am, almost everyone speaks Spanish, and I mean, to me that's a plus that they speak Spanish.
That's not the point. You're trivializing the point. When I
Yeah,
talk about
I might
Spanish,
be. I just reacted to the last thing you said without thinking. So you're probably right. You're probably right that I am doing that. But I would say if you look at recent union, and I've noticed unions are more forefront now than have been for a while. That may be because of Biden's sympathies, but it may be also because workers are actually in a very strong position right now due to these underlying trends. But almost every union negotiation ends up in success to some degree for the union. And I think that's symptomatic of this labor market that is very favorable to workers, more than normal. And so I definitely would stick to my point that immigrants are not a threat to that. And unions, because they're meant to be progressive, should be the most pro-immigrant of all.
you would think that unions look out for themselves, not for anybody else, which is unfortunate. But getting back to your original point, until COVID, the national wage was like 7.25 an hour, and with COVID, that's pretty much doubled. And you have to ask yourself why was there such a delay in raising the national wage from 7.25 to $15 an hour? The reason is pretty simple. There was excess labor, and capital isn't going to buy labor for a nickel more than it has to.
Yeah. But now, I mean, I'm sure you read more about this than me. There isn't excess labor now, is there? There's actually a trend towards not enough labor.
No, there is excess labor at the bottom of the market, or I'm sorry, the only place where the labor market is tight is in the professional and quasi-professional ranks. It's people like us, people who work in tech, in healthcare, in a variety of things. Um, there's still a lot of people who go to an inner city. I mean, there's a lot of people who can't find jobs, and the upshot of it is that there are so many single woman heads of household.
Yep. Did you read that thing about BMW employing legged robots on the production line from an American company? It was a couple of weeks ago now. It's the first time that what's it called when you got two legs? Bipeds.
Mm. Mm.
These are
I missed
robots that look human in shape, and they're going to put them on. They didn't disclose which part of the production line. So if you're thinking about competition,
Keith, this is US
this is BMW worldwide, so it probably
oh,
includes the US. It was in my newsletter a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember whether it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, but it was recently. And I mean, it occurred to me that once you step up to the 100,000-foot level, the threat to labor, not meaning human beings, but the actual job of labor, is largely going to come from tech
AI.
and AI, and robotics is very immature and hasn't really, you've got those fixed robots that are screwed to the ground. The minute you start getting robots that can walk around, which appears to be quite soon, and can be programmed to do, specific tasks, I think we're on a road to the product of work not being human.
So let me ask this question, Keith. If take that 10,000 or 30,000 foot view and ask yourself, is that something that the average worker is thinking about right now? I don't think so.
I'd say in car factories, they might be, because it's been a trend for a long time.
Car factories in Alabama.
So, and actually what I was going to talk about was actually destroyed by what you were just saying. And that is, there are things going on right now. America was just I just read something that has the best economy of the entire planet in 2024. Okay, does that matter? I don't know. But it should, it seems to me. The job market is well, but
it does matter, yeah.
Well, I'm saying it should matter to the voters who are supporting the former guy. I don't think it does. Same as this whole issue with E. Jean Carroll. I don't think it does. So we have all agreed over the past, I don't know how long, years now, that nobody's going to change those particular votes. Dennis, that's not enough voters for that guy to win.
That is absolutely true. And yeah, last week I introduced the term peak Trump. I think we are in the middle of it. And I think things are not going to go well from here on out. He's got one judgment against him. He's got another judgment coming on Wednesday. For the next month, he's going to be led around South Carolina by the nose by Nikki Haley. That's not going to be good. He is beginning to die the death of 1,000 paper cuts. May I float a different idea? There are 8 countries that I track in Central America: Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama, Belize.
That was a war-torn area, by the way, in 1980.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what?
Sandinista.
I'm going to say that Mexico has a population of 128 million. That's almost as big as Russia. That's big enough to support a nation state. You get down to someplace like Nicaragua with 7 million, Costa Rica with 5 million, Belize with 400,000. Those countries aren't big enough to hit critical mass in self-governance. And I think if you look at their gross domestic products, I don't have it up on my screen. And if you look at what the percentage of those countries that are not owned by the people of those countries, i.e., places that are plantations, you quickly discover there isn't enough land to support those meager populations, and there isn't enough revenue coming through from those meager populations to support a government. Those governments are overrun by drug lords and other kinds of crime. And so, yeah, the people want to migrate. They want to go north to relative safety. My suggestion would be that rather than trying to build a wall on the southern border, we need to do something about organizing the countries of Central America such that they can form a self-governing entity, keep their populations home, and support a good life.
Isn't the Biden administration getting together with the leaders of these countries to talk about just that kind of a solution? Is that not part of what I seem to have read something about that? And is that not part of the plan that the Democrats have put together that Trump is trying to get the Republicans to put the kibosh on for political reasons?
I have no idea. I haven't heard details like that. If that's the case, that's fantastic.
It's
But
an
you know,
interesting.
you're looking at the world's last plantation economy.
I think it would be interesting to tease out, the affinity between that idea and the old, 1970 colonial attitude towards that part of the world, where the Sandinistas were considered bad guys by America, but good guys by the local people. And you get, and there's an equivalent of the Sandinistas in every one of those countries, basically. The Tupamaras comes to mind, and that's Uruguay, right?
Yeah.
It feels as if you either have civil war in these poor countries, or you have mass exodus. But what you don't
which is
have
better.
is what you don't have is stable democracy.
Yeah.
That's right.
And stable economics. And that obviously involves natural resources and capitalism working, which it seems like it isn't.
And united fruit.
So then,
Cocaine.
and then it makes you think about borders. Like for an American, you think of the border as something that protects you. If you're in Nicaragua, you think of the border as something that locks you in a prison.
Keeps you out. Yeah.
And so this concept of borders is very different depending on whether you're from a rich country or a poor country. And I, if I'm an idealist, so I believe John Lennon is right when he says, "Imagine there's no countries; it isn't hard to do." I like that. On the other hand, from a practical point of view, the removal of borders due to wealth creation is the only way to do it. You can't remove borders in the absence of wealth creation, because then you just get a stampede.
Well,
so the root is wealth creation.
In a well-functioning country, the border provides a way to define administrative units, which is what's lacking in much of Central America.
We've got 3 minutes until the game starts. Is there anything else that any of you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's a great new streaming show that should be watched called Masters of the Air. I think it's called Masters of the Air.
Yes.
It's
I saw one social media review which said it sucked.
Well, I'm watching it, and I will say it doesn't suck.
B-17 Liberators.
Fabulous. It's really good.
And
I mean,
the lead. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, if you liked Band of Brothers, it's got that vibe. It's really good. Anyway, go ahead, Dennis. What were you saying?
I was just going to say that the lead is the guy who played Elvis.
Yep. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Watching it.
Okay, what else?
By the way, the game doesn't start until 3:04.
Oh, we can talk about more TV.
Yeah, but nobody cares about issues in the presidential campaign, but that doesn't mean we don't talk about it endlessly.
Nobody's engaging with us on the Facebook. I see here. I don't know about the other ones, but
I think we all agree that success on the issues, I mean, we all agree on, for example, women's rights, it will correlate to the outcome.
Well, you keep saying that. However, I see no real evidence that that's true.
It's been
Yes,
happening in the last few elections.
Mm.
I agree, but I think that might be because the Democrats, even though they are doing some things on the issues, the dominant narrative whenever I turn on the TV is all about Trump's legal issues. There's no real, there's a minor narrative on the issues, but it's very minor.
No, I said you think this. I didn't say that the population thinks it. The
Oh, right,
population
yeah.
is much more interested in what is that website? Rubbernecking website. You know,
Robin.
yeah, I forget.
Bulwark.
Oh, okay. No, it's the one TMZ.
I love that one. Yeah.
TMZ is where the population is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but I think there are some issues that cut through that. I mean, working class women of all ethnic origins care about um, contraception and abortion. They do.
it seems we've sort of talked about this endlessly, and it seems to me that as we get closer to the election, all of what we're talking about will coalesce. There will be some results for these legal issues. There will be some understanding because of all the money that's going to get spent by the Democrats about the issues, and there's going to be other things that happen between now and the next 10 months. And as we get closer to the November election, these things will start to become clearer. And I think we all hope it will go in a certain direction. But I think that right now, a lot of people just don't care.
Well, that's why I raised immigration, because I don't know if you saw the numbers, but Trump is getting more and more Latino support. Why? Because if you're already an immigrant, the last thing you want is more immigrants drawing attention to immigrants. So
Well,
actually, current immigrants with status tend to be the most anti-immigrant, and that is not smart of them.
is the reported growth of the Muslims in Michigan, is that because of Gaza, or is
Yes.
that because
No, it's all Gaza.
so the fact that he is going to throw many of them out, which he says he will do, that's not just the Muslims, but it's also the any other immigrants that he doesn't seem to like. And the fact that he did propose and enact a Muslim ban, all of that was forgotten.
I think Biden and Obama did a great job in the past of explaining successfully why Islamophobia is bad. And I think anti-Semitism they can do an equal job on. I think Trump cannot go there. He cannot go there, but Biden can. He can be anti-Islamophobia and against anti-Semitism at the same time, and appear reasonable in the context. But somehow he's been pigeonholed as being uncaring about Muslims, which he clearly isn't. So that's PR, right?
I liked what Dennis said a few weeks ago that I think you said this, Dennis, that what needs to happen is just sort of a re-look at the Israel policy, a
Yeah.
repositioning of it.
Yeah, no, I think I called it an audit. That's what I've been talking about. Actually putting the whole thing into audit in a high relief kind of way. It should be announced. We're reevaluating our position, and it should be a tool for trying to get the Israeli government to replace Netanyahu.
Which they will, I think, eventually.
Feels that way.
Well, that's great, but so far 26,000 have died because of this scorched earth policy that Netanyahu is pursuing in an eye for an eye approach to the problem. He's not getting things to be any better, and he's thumbing his nose at the United States.
And there hasn't been a full release of the hostages. To me, it's shocking that there hasn't been more progress on the hostage situation.
Oh yeah. Oh
it's
yeah.
it's pretty
Well,
mind.
it's super difficult, Tina, because I try and put myself in the shoes of anyone I talk about. If I put myself in those shoes, the price of hostage release is letting Hamas remain. That's the price that Hamas is asking. Like, stop the fighting, we'll release all the hostages, no more fighting, and we stay in place. And I'm pretty sure that most Israelis would not tolerate that as the outcome, and shouldn't, by the way, because what Hamas did is the cause of all of this stuff, including the 26,000 that died. Hamas killed those people, I think. Israel pulled the trigger, but Hamas the need. So it's a complicated situation. And if you really get into it, I agree with you, Dennis, actually. I mean, but I'm not Jewish and I'm not Palestinian, and I have a point of view which is, more or less invalid, therefore. But my point of view is that what you really have in that part of the world is one land and two people who both have, both historically and currently, a good reason to want to live there, and neither one of them will tolerate the other's presence. So Israel actually is the most liberal there. The Hamas side is totally illiberal in its views. Israel at least doesn't call for getting rid of all Palestinians or from the river to the sea and all that
But
stuff.
Hamas, that's Hamas that does that. The Hamas is not the Palestinians.
Well, Hamas sadly has recruited the Palestinians.
Yeah.
There's no alternative to Hamas in Gaza right now, at least.
Well,
Seems-
Keith, I can support most of what you're saying, but the issue that I have is that our friend Bibi is so unconcerned and uncreative to find a solution that gets the hostages home.
Yeah.
It's look, 75 years ago we signed an armistice with North Korea. We're still at war with them, and we acted. I think it's quite possible to have a status quo antebellum arrangement with Hamas and find ways to further degrade them later. But the point of the matter right now is that Netanyahu needs to come up with a way to save his people, which he is not doing.
And his people aren't pushing for that to happen.
Yes,
I
they
guess.
are. Yes, they are. They
Not enough, right?
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Well, I think this is probably too much detail, but the fact that the Supreme Court in Israel, or was it the Supreme Court, they blocked Netanyahu's in quotes reforms, and so he is still in jeopardy due to his previous practices, which he tried to change the law so that the legal system couldn't put him in jeopardy. And the fact that there's all these big marches in Israel reminding everyone about the hostages does suggest that Israel is a fairly dynamic democracy with a lot of opposition to Netanyahu that's working its way through their system, which is strikingly different from Gaza, where there is you would be shot if you stood up to Hamas. So I think you're looking at the difference between a body politic that will probably figure it out in Israel. I can be as skeptical as you are, Dennis, about that, but I think that there's evidence that young Israelis in particular, who are not, in my experience, anti-Palestinian at all, have no time for Bibi either. But in Gaza, you've got actually you looked at from the point of view of Israel, you've got a structural problem that I'm not clever enough to figure out what the solution would be.
Nobody has been for the last couple of 100 years.
Oh, I don't know. Problems have solutions. One of the reasons we haven't reached even a prototype of a solution in this particular case is that the conservative parties in Israel have stonewalled for decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A refusal to even consider a two-state solution.
Gee,
Well,
that's
on both sides, look at all the
going on.
assassinations. The assassinations are your evidence. Whenever you get close to an agreement, people get killed.
Mhm.
Well, anybody who thinks that the Republicans are going to allow a border solution is just plain deluded.
You mean before the election?
No, right now.
There's always an
Yeah.
election.
Well,
Well, that's why you do an end run and you try to organize Central America to obviate the need for migration.
Well, that's a pretty heavy lift, and
Yes, it is.
I would look more toward actually having voters in this country become aware of their responsibility, and that requires leadership.
That's kind of a heavy lift too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but less so than your Marshall Plan for the Central America.
Well, the voters, you're saying that the voters have to get get it together enough to oust the people who are in line with Trump, so that the Congress becomes a Democratic Congress.
No,
That's
I'm not saying that.
How do you, Steve, how do you
about
read?
a 0.01% plurality on the part of the Democrats that is not being taken into account by the media.
the media is not taking much into account these days.
Yeah,
as
but
far
I
as
mean,
I'm concerned.
we've beat
Yeah, I
that
know.
horse
Yeah,
quite.
that horse is dead now.
I was going to ask Steve, is your reading of the Republicans in the House that they are bowing down to Trump? I mean, I've heard these rumblings this week by Republicans saying, no, we can't let the border be held so it can be an election issue for Trump. We've got to do something. I've heard Republicans say that. Are
They
they?
were senators.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
And not only that, but it's not going to happen. So,
Okay.
gee, it's material for CNN, which has gone so far to the right in the last several months that it's really indistinguishable from Fox.
Hmm.
So, that's what's going to happen. I
what
enjoyed.
education of the
No, simply, anybody who thinks that Nikki Haley should stop, I'm not voting for them either.
True.
Nikki Haley's doing the best job of any political party right now.
Yeah.
Nikki Haley has the capacity to win.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You know that her first backer was Tim Draper, who's one of my investors.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week.
Yeah. And he's hosting. I just got an email saying she's going to be here this week, and if you can afford $6,600, you can go and meet her.
Well, she's here right now, thanks. Since this is
And is she in your back room? She's back there in the other
right
room
over
there?
there.
Yeah. This is like coming full circle in the conversation about the power of Nikki Haley.
Well,
Why-
she I mean,
Well, it's what we started with in
the
on
stuff
the show.
about the
No,
stuff about
you mentioned it, and then you went off on this race.
Well, but the
mean,
fact that it was mentioned is like the beginning of a circle, isn't it? Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
I agree with your
if
characterization.
it works, great. If it doesn't work, so what?
Yeah, that's my view as well. Although whilst I agree with your characterization that good for her, it's pretty hard to forget who she is based on what she said in the recent past about, the Civil War and stuff. I mean, she clearly is a politician, so she's playing to the gallery, and there's certain things she can't say. So
Yeah,
who knows?
that's her job, is
Yeah.
to skate the edge of what she can say and what she has to sort of wink and nod at. But she was on Meet the Press today, and it was
For a
really,
while.
yeah, about the 35 minutes of the show. So uh, that in itself is an interesting tilt on the part of NBC. Uh, I mean, it seems to me right now that nobody really cares about the general election.
The Meet the Press host, she has brought
Well, she's terrific as a analyst and a interviewer. She's
yeah.
really good at that.
And that means that she's brought a kind of a more genuine narrative into Meet the Press. It's strikingly different than Morning Joe. She is her first interview was with Trump, and she was kind of lambasted for that.
Yeah.
But she actually has turned Meet the Press into something that's more engaged with all sides of the conversation than almost any other TV show, I think.
Yeah.
Between us, I don't like her style. She has those glaring eyes, but I agree with you. She's super clever and a very good analyst. I don't like when she raises her voice and she's presenting in quotes. I like her when she's more natural and herself.
Well, I
Boy,
think
and you look at her.
everybody could do better. This show is a perfect example of that. On the other hand, it beats doing nothing.
Yeah.
She's
No,
doing
she's
some stuff right now that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
I mean,
I thought it was really bizarre to see Chuck Todd on NBC Now. That
yeah,
was
Chuck Todd is sort of kicked himself sideways into a position of actually being effective again, because he knows his business, and he knows how Congress works, and he has a network associated with that, which he was never able to use because on Meet the Press, because he was basically making up for the lost years from that other idiot.
I like Heilman as well.
Oh, he's good.
Hammond's good, but he's tilting a little bit a little toward the middle prematurely.
He's not a good host, I don't think, though.
He's a
Right.
good analyst and he's a
Yes.
good he pokes you and
Yeah.
makes you think.
He's a good guest. He's a good analyst. He's not a good host.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
If
think
you watch the circus, he doesn't play the role of host. He plays the role of organizer of the troupe, if you will.
Yeah.
He's quite good on that.
That feels
Yeah.
more like a documentary style kind of thing
yeah,
than
exactly, which doesn't work, at least not for me.
Yeah.
So
All right, so
can someone just postulate the trajectory for, I mean, the possible trajectory for Nikki Haley in a positive, like, is it just like, oh, there's this tiny little, small little, very little chance, or is it a bigger chance? And are we going to see that within the next month?
okay, so here's why it's important and is working. She's not running in the Republican primary. She's running in the general election. So everything she says is effective in terms of the general election, where this is not a done deal by any means. It's not done for the Democrats either, but it brings in much more of the power of the Democratic Party and Biden's ability to be able to negotiate with people who are intransigent. So I think it's a major, she's basically decided, or somebody has decided, that there's no reason for her to quit.
Mm-hmm.
How?
if she can hold out long enough to get through all of the legal problems that Trump is facing, that could make a difference.
Yeah, I think that it's cumulative that will make a difference, but I don't think that it is dispositive toward Trump's chance of becoming president again.
So my reading is she probably won't do very well in South Carolina.
Right.
But if she can get to Super Tuesday, and in the time between now and then, which is a month or so, Trump comes off the rails in some way, she has an outside chance of flipping the narrative on Super Tuesday. And if she doesn't flip the narrative, then probably she's done at that point.
But that's
But
all. That's
but
Trump's
even
spin.
but
All that
let me just say one more thing.
calendar is not in her favor because Trump has taken over the Republican Party and made it enough of a winner take all that it's pretty much inevitable that he's going to have a commanding lead. The
Yeah.
question is whether or not, does she at a certain point realize that the third party is the way to put Trump away? Which is, I think,
What I would really love is if Trump is forced to do the third party. It would become like a right-wing nationalist party. But most likely he's just going to turn the Republicans into that. But it would be very nice if there was a way to force him to do the third party.
yeah. Well, I'm not counting on it, him and his craziness forcing the issue.
He's already turned the Republicans into that.
Yeah.
But I still come back to the source of his energy is the fact that normal people are pissed off with DC. I can't get away from that. The only way I can explain what Tina was talking about earlier, which is people's preparedness to turn off their morals and their brain, is they so much hate, just like Brent hates the 49ers, they so much hate DC that he's their guy. And unless the Democrats can appeal to those people, which they can only do by not being DC, by actually standing up for something, then I don't see how you break his base. And if you don't break his base, then Nikki Haley does go the way you said, Steve, if she wants to separate, but she'll be a loser or a separator.
Well, here's
I think
there's something
you're buying this inevitability spin about Trump, which is non-existent.
there's an irony to what you're saying, Keith. In what is to hate in Washington is Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, and
But also the vice president. People hate politicians who are slick politicians. No one likes a slick politician, let's face it.
Well, you're getting closer in discussing personality. You're getting closer or further away enough for my taste from this idea that this is a issues-based campaign.
No, I don't think it is. I wish it was.
I know you don't.
But I agree with you that it isn't issues-based.
You can't agree with me by saying and thinking the exact opposite.
Well, I want it to be issues-based because I think that's a winning strategy, but I know it isn't.
Well,
It's too early to be issues-based. Issues-based happens in the general, not in the primaries. In the primaries, you run to the ends and you try to rev up your base. And that's not about issues. That's about base.
Yeah, there's no reason to rev up a base that's already revved up.
But that's the machinery. I mean, I agree with you, Dennis, totally. But that is the machinery of politics where process takes first place, which is what ordinary people hate.
Yeah, I think you're over-rotating on this as a definitive inflection point. I can understand that there are some of these issues floating around here, but is it going to change who wins the election? No.
No, I think it's set in stone because of all those things. It is set in stone. None of this is going to change, and so you are going to be voting for.
Well, I mean,
a
what you're saying
populist.
is that nothing's going to change, and how about if Biden wins? Does that mean nothing has changed?
No, I'm making it an earlier point. I'm saying the election is going to be between a populist anti-DC Trump and an establishment, look what I've done for you, Biden. I think Biden probably will win, but it won't change the underlying problem when Biden wins, because that populism actually is fueled by, largely good intent. That is to say, hey, what about me?
So what I think is that if you look at the Meet the Press, it's available on digital. You can just watch it.
Yeah, I usually
You
do,
have to
but
watch it all the way. You got to watch it all the way through because uh, what she's demonstrating right now is the ability to be able to continue with a narrative that is ultimately the only damaging thing to Trump that exists right now. It's not the Democrats talking about the loss of democracy. That's nobody cares about that in this country right now, to Dennis's point. And I don't think they're going to care about it later because it's going to be superseded by much more tactical issues. And I don't mean that to diminish them, such as abortion and the things that are going to really get people out to vote.
Well, Keith's right in a lot of areas. And I would only add that Trump made his bones in attacking East and West Coast elites and college educated people and basically all the people who are not his primary voters. And he made some good points. The last 50 years has been a time when in a lot of cases liberals gave up on the working man and woman. And I think if the Democratic nominee, whoever he is or she is, can maybe go against type and say, hey, you know what, we got to change this. And they can point to some concrete wins as opposed to the Trumpist approach of let's create chaos and burn everything down, then I think the Democrats do just fine.
Well, I think that if you watch the Nikki Haley uh, energy in this interview, if you watch it from beginning to end, it's very difficult to think that the Democrats are going to do much about this situation.
Well, I think Nikki Haley doesn't have a chance. She's towing the traditional Republican line, which is that Social Security is too generous, Medicare is too generous, Obamacare should be repealed. She's already talking about all that stuff. That was part of
Yeah, but she's running on a campaign of all this may be true. It may be arguable by reasonable people in both Democrats and Republicans, i.e., independents. It may be reasonable to trade getting Trump out to have to buy into her more traditional, more right, more Civil War-ish, all of those issues. It may be worth getting some rationality back into the system. And I think that's whether it's her or basically people saying, okay, enough of this. Biden's old, but he's not nuts. Or any of those calculations. That's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a break point, which will probably come in August.
Once again, we need to bring back the not insane buttons.
Right.
When is the Republican
I don't know, July maybe?
I was gonna say June, but yeah, maybe.
Probably, well, around there.
In what, Pittsburgh or something like that?
No, Detroit, isn't it?
No, it's, and they said yesterday, but I don't think they said Detroit. I would have heard a go blue coming from the other room.
I'm going to go and watch the Nikki Haley. Unfortunately, Newport County and Manchester United stole my Meet the Press time this morning.
The Republican convention is July 15th through 18th in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, yes.
Okay.
right.
We're getting to that.
No, we're not getting it. We're there. Okay, so this has been an inaugural edition of the new Gillmor Gang. And I want to thank what's that guy over there? What happened? Oh, okay. The guy with the TV set tuned to another channel. Thanks, Brent.
You're more than welcome.
Thanks, Dennis.
Peak Trump, keep watching.
Thanks, Keith.
I think I have to bring back my A10 Mini to my desk after seeing Brent do that. I can't do that anymore.
You're jealous.
But you look
Yeah.
cinematic, Keith. That's all that matters.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, and thank you, gang. I actually pulled back on my technology in my area here, and I'm now thinking, geez, I need to get some more wires and gadgets because I just can't keep up. I need more lights. I need some fill. I need some backlight, some side lights, and some chin lights, and then I need a better microphone, and I need a switcher, and
You're a makeup artist and
Hair and makeup.
that. I need some blinds because, and I keep saying, and we keep getting these weird things on our
Like
face,
this?
like yeah, the cross on Steve's head.
Yeah.
By next time we meet, I will have the Apple Vision Pro. I'm gonna do it with it on.
Oh,
Can
Yeah.
you do the? Can you? You
All
should be.
dressed
Can you
up
do
and
the
nowhere
show?
to talk.
Well, can you do the show with the Vision Pro and see it?
Yeah,
in
I'll
the,
be able
yeah?
to see Zoom inside it, but you'll only see my masked face.
See, that's a problem right there. Who wants to see a bunch of people wearing masks in a Zoom meeting?
Exactly.
That just doesn't work.
I agree. Unless everybody's wearing a mask and you have an avatar and you see the avatars, that could work, but then everyone has to have a mask.
Yeah.
Steve will be distributing them shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
right.
they'll have
Along with
have a big logo
The
on
Gilmore
them, like
Gang mug.
wait a minute, like the mugs and the T-shirts that you never got.
Just hang in there. When the Democrats start doing something right, they'll be right along.
Really? We got to wait for that? I mean, geez.
No,
We need.
my
how
guess
about-
is if we pitched Eddie Q, the Vision Gang, and asked for a couple $100,000 sponsorship, you never know. He might supply us all with masks.
Oh, I know.
there we go.
That won't
Yeah,
happen.
sure. Okay,
Right
yeah,
now.
we'll do it. Here, just take these.
No, there is going to be no ask of Apple about anything. We're going to all afford
Ooh.
them
Fight
because
breaking out.
the guaranteed
All right. This is,
model
They're
that
fighting already.
Keith keeps
yeah,
up.
this is getting good already.
I
Oh,
guarantee Brent's going to buy one because they're going to do 3D sports like you're in the stadium, and he won't be able to resist it.
Bill
Yeah,
Malik says, but it's a little premature.
Yeah, Brent, you'd be right down there on the field right now, taking one for the team.
yeah, I ain't
Okay.
taking 3,500 for the team.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, I got a couple of quick points. Live sports is the only thing that matters anymore. You saw last week, 50 million people watched Kansas City and Buffalo. 40 million people watched the other game, Detroit and Tampa Bay. 40 million people. And then on top of that, Netflix pays WWE $5 billion because the only thing that keeps a collective attention, real sports, live sports.
Yeah.
And
You know, it's funny, though, those-
WWE is the Trump voters.
Of course. Yeah.
Didn't the WWE leader just resign because of
Yes.
some sort of Trump-like activities?
Some additional Trump-like activities.
Yeah, I saw the one photograph of the two of them together. It was like, birds of a feather. Sports is absolutely the only thing that's keeping broadcast television and now the stream in some kind of area the way it was back, I want to say 20 years ago, when the numbers really mattered. 20 years ago, 30 or 40 million was a winning number for something to watch. when now an average number is somewhere in the 7 and 8 million range, except for live sports.
I saw on CNBC, Frank, that a billionaire has bid for Paramount.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't, I
You
know
got
about
something to say?
Paramount.
You got something to tell us, Frank? Something you want to
Well,
share?
no, I'm not doing it. I don't care what you say. I'm not going to do it. My wife won't let me.
What? Get one of those?
No, spend my money on Paramount.
by Paramount. Yeah. All right.
All right. So thanks, Tina.
When you say thanks, Tina, I don't know what you
I want
thank
you to do what everybody else did. Say 2 or 3 words and smile.
Go Lions.
Go blue.
Go blue, of course. And we'll I don't know. We'll see you next time.
I
Can you
have
keep
I have
that
a
up for
short thing to
the
say about lack of time last week. A good friend of ours, and by ours, I mean a lot of people in Woodstock where he lived, the late great PDQ Bach, otherwise known as, what was his name? Come on,
Oh, come on.
Peter
Shickley.
Shickley, died this at 88. And I will always remember, I spent some time with him when I recorded a bunch of his uh, songs that he wrote for himself and for Joan Baez and some other people in my house. And he was just a great gentleman. But the wonderful memory that I continue to and always will have is of him. And I think that this was at Carnegie Hall, but Wikipedia says no. Wikipedia says Town Hall or Lincoln Center. Of Peter coming in Tarzan-like onto the stage, making his entrance. There was just something about his wonderful sense of humor mixed with the only people that can really lampoon anything are those that could do it themselves, and he could do it all. He was an incredible artist, and many people in the world of comedy and music are mourning his passing. So we love you, and wish it had gone on a whole lot longer.
Thanks for sharing that, Steve.
Yeah. And one lesson learned there is don't believe anything Wikipedia says.
No, that's not true. Wikipedia I live for, and I even contributed, which is
I do too. I
Good.
do it every year.
Then go back and fix my profile, because when Tim Russert died,
well, you can't fix it if it's about you. I mean,
no, you.
Gillmor Gang.
When Tim Russert died, I used the name that Wikipedia attributed to Tim Russert, and it wasn't his name.
You know, the secret handshake about Wikipedia is you fix mine and I'll fix yours.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. They have this kind of open source mentality, which sort of works, but it works better than anything else that's been invented. So I think Wikipedia is fantastic.
Is anyone finding that Threads is actually starting to become something worth using?
Nope.
Not in my book.
I don't know anybody that uses it.
I actually post to it just in case, but
Yeah,
I'm not
me
getting
too.
any interaction from it.
Yeah, I don't get any traction on it.
LinkedIn is where all the action is for business interaction networks.
Yeah, I think Facebook seems to be coming back. I don't know.
Really?
Well, I think what Musk is doing in video is intriguing enough that I think X is going to become more, not less relevant for this kind of thing.
Well, he does own it, so.
Seems like no one wants to stop the show.
Oh yeah.
I'm starving. I'm going to faint soon if I don't go and eat.
Well, we've got some fast jujitsu to do here before the game starts.
Okay. Thanks to everybody.
It's already started, by the way.
Yes.
and especially those who, stayed away. We appreciate their lack of attention.
Okay.
All
Bye-bye.
righty then.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Game time. See ya.
Have a good week.
Ciao, Maine.